the first African-American woman to lead the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. She took office on December 1st, 2016, with a vision for transforming the Cook County State's Attorney's Office into a fairer, more forward-thinking agency focused on rebuilding the public trust, promoting transparency, and being proactive in making all communities safe. She was elected to a second term in 2020. As state's attorney, she's undertaking substantial criminal justice reforms focused on public safety and equity. She revamped the office's conviction integrity unit, resulting in overturned convictions in more than 175 cases, including the first ever mass exoneration in Cook County for 15 men whose convictions stemmed from misconduct by a Chicago police officer. She's also a daughter, a wife, a mother, and a native Chicagoan who has withstood a level of public scrutiny few of us will ever want to endure. Please join me and Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx on the season premiere of In the Arena right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
State's Attorney Foxx. Kim?
Yes.
It is a pleasure. I have been in the city for 14 years. I have watched your work for quite a bit of it. Heavy as the head, but you have been on our station before. Grace under pressure doesn't begin to describe it because I'm still a work in progress. God is still working on me. And there have been instances over these past years, I was like, they would have had a different press conference. But let's get to that later. Let's begin at the beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born here in the city of Chicago in 1972 on the near north side. I'm a product of Cabrini Green Public Housing Projects.
Tell me about your mother and father.
My mother was, one of the most brilliant, strong people I've ever met. And not just because she's my mother, you get to meet a lot of people. She was a teen mom. I'm her second child. She had my brother at 17. She had me at 18. And dropped out of high school because I was born 3 months before she was supposed to graduate. And to know that she had the foresight, the courage, the fortitude to raise a daughter under those circumstances, to be a lawyer, not just a lawyer, to be the top prosecutor in Cook County, given the limitations that she was dealt. She's an incredible woman. And my dad was also a young parent. He was 20 when he had me, and 19 when he had my brother, and went on to go to college, get a master's degree in social work, and has spent his career, he just recently retired, in the social work field, so helping families navigate challenges much like the ones I grew up with.
My goodness. And I always say these first 4 questions, no matter what, whether it is president, state's attorney, teacher, doctor, lawyer, you start to see the song under the music, the actual song that makes you the state's attorney that you have been. It starts to make sense almost from the beginning. That's why we do this. Let's talk about your brother. What was the relationship growing up, and what is the relationship now?
So my brother and I are 13 months apart, and so, when you are that close in age,
it's either really good or really
it's really
not.
good or really bad.
Yep.
And so I would say, right, until we got to high school, it was good. I was his annoying little sister. And then we got to high school, and he was like, "Act like you don't know me when you see me." He didn't want to ride with me. But my brother is also a really fascinating man. He was into theater. And so we're growing up in the projects of Chicago, and they would have people come and volunteer and, with the kids on the weekends. And he really got into theater. And so my brother actually went to Juilliard to study theater. So again, when I think about how amazing my mom was, that she raised a lawyer and a Juilliard trained actor.
Okay, so is your mom still with us?
No, my mom passed away in 2012. So she died before she ever got to see me ascend to this role.
I believe she sees it.
Oh, she sees it.
I believe she sees it.
She
And
sees
I believe I'm getting to know her as I sit here talking with you. You are her greatest legacy.
Thank you.
One of them.
Thank you.
Now, you can see it. So, where did you go to high school?
So I went to 2 high schools. So
Is there a story here?
there's a little story.
Okay,
There's
let's
a little
walk through
story.
it.
So I went to Lane Tech High School. And at the time, in the mid-'80s, Lane Tech was considered one of the top schools in Chicago. It was like Lane Tech, Whitney Young were always battling out. I wanted to go to the top school. It was Lane Tech at the time. And the tech in Lane Tech means technical. I didn't know. I didn't understand that. So that meant like wood shop.
Like Voc Tech.
Like like wood shop and electric shop and like things with your hands.
Yeah.
And if you see, I have large, long fingers that were at risk of getting sawn off in a wood shop and electrocuted in an electric shop. I hated it. So I ended up transferring my sophomore year to Lincoln Park High School in the Math Science Honors Program.
That makes sense.
And that's why my brother couldn't stand me, because we were in 2 different schools. I was at Lane Tech and he was at Lincoln Park, and he could have his life at Lincoln Park.
Oh, you ruined it.
And then I came and ruined it. Yeah.
Is it Stephen?
Stephen.
I'm Team Stephen on this.
Are you?
I feel like I have to be on this.
I mean, he had his own shine. We weren't in the same universe, but yeah, it was.
There's the prosecutor.
That is,
are you?
Yeah,
sure?
I mean, but that's where the tension came.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
but
where
we've worked through it. Are we? What's the relationship now? Is it still competitive?
It's not competitive. That's, he went off to New York to go study, and then he lived in LA for a number of years, and he moved back when my mother passed away in 2012. And so it's an interesting ride to be back in the city together when so much has changed for both of us.
And you are dramatically different people.
Dramatically
My
different.
goodness.
Dramatically different.
Wow. Where'd you go to college?
I went to Southern Illinois University in Carbondale.
They always add the Carbondale.
Yes.
And
It's 2. I just want us to be clear.
I
went to the one in Carbondale.
I'm very clear. And let me explain to you how we have a point of connection. I went to University of Michigan, and before people ask, the one in Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor.
Not the one in Dearborn. No offense, but the one in Ann Arbor.
I know you Ann Arbor people. Go Blue. I understand. I understand.
That felt like it had an edge to
No,
it.
it feels like I have a lot of
What?
Michigan friends.
Okay.
Yes, and so I understand protocol.
Okay. Oh, fair enough. Respect right back at you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask the question, though I think I already know the answer. But were you a good student?
Yes.
What made you a good student? Did it come easy to you?
I think so. I love to read. So I was a voracious reader very early. And I remember my mother and my grandma, people would joke that there was nothing that could be left in front of me that I wasn't trying to read whatever words were on it. So the cereal box would be, and I'd have the cereal box and I'm reading the cereal box. And so I love to read, I love to write. And so school always felt like an outlet for me. So we lived in the projects, but I was fortunate enough to go to LaSalle Language Academy, which is a magnet school about a mile away. And it was a world of opportunity that I wasn't given in my old school, right?
Yeah.
And ironically, my old school in the heart of Cabrini was Sojourner Truth. Named the school after Sojourner Truth, one of the most underfunded schools in the city. A mile
seems
north.
to track.
Yeah, a mile north, you go to LaSalle Language Academy. And I'm learning Spanish in 3rd grade. I'm learning about, brilliant musicians and artists. And it was, I just could not learn enough. And I still have that. I still, even at this big age, I'm like, what more can I learn?
Yeah. Okay, I'm telling you, I always say in these chairs, one of the many privileges of this role is to sit with people who you know because they're, we always say, well known, but always well worth knowing. And you re-meet them, and we talked about this. You and I have been in so many rooms, and I have such great respect. But to sit and talk with a human and remove the other, it's not a stereotype. It is a smart woman who loved books, who had competitiveness with her brother, who loves her mom, all of those things.
Right.
And I think right now in this dash moment, one of the best things that we can do is give each other space to be seen and be heard, so we can see ourselves in each other, because we've gotten very, I'm 55, I remember a time where we actually could disagree without being disagreeable.
That's right.
In my lifetime. I remember a time where I actually, like you, part of when they started treating me different, in 4th and 7th grade, you get those standardized tests, and they realized that although because I had a lisp and stutter, I didn't talk, my reading comprehension was off the chain. So to have my 4th grade teacher come to my house and have an uncomfortable conversation with my mom, bringing me books, to have your mom, even if she only knows it by sloppy will in her spirit, that there is more for my baby, because she never had the exposure.
That's right.
The power in having those conversations, because people look at the outcome,
That's right.
and they think Kim Foxx is this, because Kim Foxx has these degrees.
That's right.
But Kim Foxx is, with love and tenacity, is what is possible, and it is the human side of that that matters. It's so easy.
That's right.
Okay, I got off track, but we're back on. We're going to get back on.
No, I love that, though. If I, just for a moment,
Please.
I think when people do see me, there are assumptions that they make, right? You're a lawyer, and you've had these big positions, and I love talking about my mom. My parents were never married. My mother was that woman you see at the convenience store with 2 babies, right? And the judgments that we have about them, right? My mother, I was a hip baby, you know. I was on my mother's hip while my brother was like doing whatever, and she wasn't yet 20. And the judgments that we have about who those people are and what's possible. And so I love taking the opportunity to talk about that foundation, because it really is, for me, that I got to LaSalle because my mother was like, that school is not sufficient for my baby. And this is a 24-year-old woman advocating and saying, you're going to get her into this school. And for her to have 2 children who did go to school, a son that went to Juilliard, like we couldn't even dream or fathom that, comes from this woman who had 2 babies
and who
at 18.
didn't even have the exposure to it, but she knew she wanted.
Yeah, not just wanted, but we deserved better.
And she insisted on it. And that's what happens so much. We could have probably months worth of conversation, but in this, I always talk about this caste system where there is so much to relearn on, I'm going to talk about in our house. I'm going to talk about in our house, to relearn lessons that we learn, to think that we're protecting each other, think we're protecting you, going, Kim Foxx, don't think about that. Don't go there. They're going to be cruel and hard. Instead of going, we got you, we're going to give you cover and confirmation, so much of it is an autopilot that we have to relearn.
That's right.
Because we also, I've seen it, we also look at the mother with her 2 babies.
Oh, I know.
After we get, okay. So,
I know.
Okay.
That's why I tell it. I remember when I ran for office the first time, I was in Hyde Park, and you know, I talk about being from Cabrini because it is the fabric of who I am. And this woman, an elder, and she meant well. I know she did. I know she did. She said, "Baby, you're a lawyer. You have done well. You don't need to talk about that part of your life because you don't want people feeling sorry for you. You want people proud of your accomplishments." And I remember like rolling back, like, do you think? Oh, you feel sorry for poor people.
That's my power. That was you. That's.
But it was us, and she meant well.
Absolutely.
And she absolutely wanted me to win, but that caste system, that like achievement is over here, and the struggle.
And as soon as you can disassociate yourself from all of it and be acceptable to them.
Yes.
And I love, and that's why, as I was doing the research on our conversation, the pride with which you talk about that. And we're going to talk about your mom and grandmom, because that tag team right there.
Yes.
But, and I remember sitting here with someone we both know and respect, Felicia Davis Blakely, on this show, talking about college degrees and how there was a time, because she went into her career, was a younger parent, went into her career, was married 10 years into the force before she continued her college education. And we are told, we are conditioned that as soon as we get a semblance of shiny, deny everything that makes us us.
That's right.
Deny it. Where I, like you, am proud of the fact that I was from the east side of Detroit. My mom, I tell people right now, do not let the smooth taste fool you. In the case of an issue, my mom at 80 years old, who I want to stand next to, because she will get it handled. And then she will put the earrings back on, put that hair back in place and keep it moving. But that's my power. And we keep allowing people to take away what makes you magical, what makes you all of those things beside the talent is the lived experience, the cultural competency that made it important for you to say cash bail is an important issue. That I'm willing to have people, I'm just going to, from observations, I'm willing to be filleted publicly. To do what is the right thing. Because I have lived in worlds, not from a distance, but I have lived and I know how this impacts communities, and I know the unfairness of something like this and how it can destroy families and generations. You've got to have, so why would we want you to remove Cabrini Green from your resume?
And the thing is, people from my neighborhood never get to sit at tables like the ones I sit at. They don't get in those rooms, right? They don't get, we talk a lot about me being the first Black woman to hold this role. I'm the first project chick to hold this role, right?
I love that.
And we don't, and I grew up believing and being told that there's a city for them and a city for us. And so for me, getting into this role and to not bring all of those people who did not have access to these rooms with me, to try to be above my caste, if you will, to like, you're not gonna notice me, I have an obligation, not just to my mom and my grandmother, but to truly thousands who have the same lived experience, who are told that they are not enough. And so it is the reminder that when you see me, you see them. And it is just incredibly important to me to do that. Because my mother was brilliant. And I feel like I know I watched this world judge her as not enough. And so I think it's incredibly important that, and it's not even just about the struggle. I can take a lot because I've taken a lot.
I was about to say, because you have.
And so
that is not esoteric or hypothetical.
When people are like, we don't understand how I grew up with that. I grew up with a mother and a grandmother who the first of the month bills were due, and there was a hustle that had to happen. And so whether my grandmother was bagging Avon, and I was like the inventory clerk, or when people were selling catfish dinners to help bail somebody out of jail,
or
like
a rent party, come on.
And so that is where it comes from. And people ask me, like, where do you get? It's like I grew up in community that had the least and was able to make so much out of it, that some of this just feels, whether it annoys the haters, but it's like gravy. Like, this what you got? This it?
Well, I just recently went, okay, that was good. Was that your shot?
That's it?
Is it my turn now? Okay, that was great. Good for you. Good. Was that your best? Because it's my turn now, and I'm going to show you. And part of what I think, do you think it is a fair assessment? I think within this caste system, there is always this carrot that if you assimilate enough, or if you get the right degrees, we'll accept you. And I do believe, and I've held myself accountable for it over my lifetime, graduating high school a year early, going to University of Michigan, and it was right around the time, which wasn't the first or the last, of Mr. Floyd's murder, where I went, I'm done with respectability politics, completely, not just cerebrally. I am done keeping my hair of the two all the way around. I am done being palpable because I've been conditioned to be the king's English one in the room that's comfortable. But then do you think we're at the point now, 3 years after George Floyd, where the comb is kind of lifting and the fragility is returning, and now it's, we tried it again, we'll try it again in 30 years, get back out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Listen, America is nothing if not consistent. I say that to people all the time, that we act brand new when we have these moments of gain, that there's an inevitable backlash. And so when people talked about post-racial, when Barack Obama was elected, this, where we saw ourselves with Trump, was an inevitable conclusion. And we would like to think ourselves much better. But we ended slavery, and we had a period of Reconstruction, and then we had a period of Jim Crow and lynching. And so I think even in the course of the last several years, in this stand with Black women and this this heralding of Black women, I think a lot of it was performative. I think a lot of it was, well, how are we on the other side of that when we do actually acknowledge that Black women tend to be on the forefront of many of these issues, have to have a courage and a fearlessness that others haven't. Again, when I think of my grandmother, my mother, the other women who lived at 624 West Division who were raising these children, that it is innate. We don't have the luxury as Black women of everything not being urgent. We don't have that luxury. And so when you are conditioned, and from the moment we hit these shores, to protect our families, to protect our communities, no matter what, even, again, within our own communities and the erasure of the work that we do, that we get to be Rosa Parks, but it's, we were Rosa Parks and then more, and then some. Yep. When we talk about the civil rights movement, and we talk a lot about the men of the movement, the Black women who were the backbone of that movement too. And so I think historically, Black women have held this country on our shoulders with very little appreciation. And so, you know, when people do what they do, I'm not surprised. When people don't vote for Hillary Clinton and the numbers bear out who that was, it does not surprise me, nor does the performance afterwards to atone for poor decision making or indoctrination of patriarchy and white supremacy.
I enjoy your brain, and I knew I would. It's like, no, really, it's like talk. I tell my friends that the day after the election, I was the COO at Chicago Urban League, and we happened to have a senior leadership team meeting. And everyone walked in, and anger and tears. I went to bed at 11:20 that night because when my home state of Michigan and then our next door neighbor Wisconsin failed us, I went and I got on my knees, fell to my face, said a prayer, and I slept like a baby. And I remember saying the very next day there, please let's not get distracted.
That's right.
And please let's take a day or two, but please let's not act like we don't know how this happened.
That's right.
This was happening as Barack Hussein Obama was being inaugurated. They were in that building going, our one goal is to give him nothing.
That's right.
And if you got 600 years, if you go back to the slave trade, because I think you should give the whole history.
That's right.
Not just the 4, but the 6, where Black folks were 3/5. So when you look now and you go, how is it possible? These are just my thoughts, Kim Foxx. How is it possible that a white person who has serial killer or gets Burger King? Well, if you go back to our history, if you do not address things, a country that began on the premise so we could feel like good Christians and Quakers, that Blacks were not human, if you do not address things, so as people are sitting here in 2023 in shock, I share your view. I go, you got 2 choices here. Do the work. It won't be finished in our lifetime. Do the work. Or continue to see a country that's on the brink of the democracy crumbling, a country where there is such vitriol, such anger, such hatred. We want to rush back to normal. And I don't know that normal was ever great for any of us.
I don't know. My normal has always been hustle, right? So my normal has always been about the work. And so even in my role, like as I hear you talk, as the first Black elected to that position, Cecil Partee was appointed, but he didn't win election. And in an institution that has largely been men, so I'm the second woman after 100 years, the first, and overseeing a system that impacts Black folks. And so I knew that my mere presence was disruptive. I knew, you talk about like bending into respectability, I knew I didn't have to say anything, that this ebony skin, this 6-foot frame, sitting in a room, you know, people don't appreciate.
Your very presence is aggressive.
It's aggressive. There are 102 state's attorneys in the state of Illinois. I'm the first Black one elected in the state. We don't even talk about that. And in rooms now, I'm the only in the room out of 102. And so the vitriol that I have seen, the distractions that people have tried to dangle in my face to take my eye off the prize, doesn't surprise me. We could talk about an actor who didn't go to prison for 2 years in our editorial boards, But we have vacated the convictions of hundreds of black men
I just
who
talked
were
about 100. I
wrongfully.
just talked about
Yeah, the number is closer to 250 at this
breathtaking.
point.
Yeah.
But we will spend more time having spoken about the one man who didn't go than the 200 plus who we let out or whose convictions were vacated. And that is the element of distraction. And sometimes I would get frustrated because it's like, this is what the game is. Yes. The game is to have me talking about this
yes.
and not about the systemic issues that I came here to address. Yeah. And so, 2016, 2020, in the wake of George Floyd, I was optimistic that we would have continued conversation, if not systemic change. And so the whiplash that is, the fall of affirmative action, we can't, slavery had a benefit to blacks, this whiplash moment that we find ourselves into, the only surprise is that it was 4 years, that we didn't play at least a decade.
You made a decision on April 25th of this year. I heard it as soon as it came. It was a sound that moved around Chicago during a speech at the City Club. Yeah. You announced that you were not going to seek re-election in 2024. Walk us through how you process and make that decision. What are the things you look at? How do you come to that decision?
I mean, it started when I ran in 2016. I grew up here, and I've seen elected officials get in office and never leave. Decades, a generation. And I knew, just having grown up, like, we deserve to have people with fresh ideas and energy and the ability to bring more folks in.
Do you really believe that?
I do. I believe it.
Come on.
I absolutely believe it. And so I knew when I came in 2016, this wasn't a lifetime role for me. I hoped and prayed that the voters would believe in what I was doing and give me an opportunity to be reelected. And after 2020, when I was reelected and we went into the pandemic, I'm now leading in a time unlike any other time in history.
Absolutely. Unlike
any other time in history. An office of 1,200 people that's now working remote, families, falling apart because of distance and the pandemic. It was really difficult. It was also very personally difficult. I am a mother. I have 4 young women that I'm raising. I was married during the pandemic. My then husband got cancer right in the middle of chaos. And I was pulled in many different directions because you don't take off individual hats. I'm always those girls' mom. I was always that person's spouse. And I was still the state's attorney, and I still had a dad and a brother. And at a certain point during the course of it all, the question became, in service to what? And I reckoned with that for a bit. And over the course of the last several months before I made the decision, there were a couple things. I was going through a divorce. My oldest 2 children are away in college. My youngest 2 children are now seniors in high school. And it was the question of, do you think, as a daughter of the city, that you have given what you were supposed to give?